Now, Lucius Tarquinius Jr. seemed to have been very fascinated by the Latins. And the Latins were this tribe. In fact, the Latins were, we can say, cousins or even brothers of the Romans. The Romans came from the Latins. And while the previous kings had fought wars and brought so many Latins into Rome, there were still Latin tribes that were out there. And those are the ones that Lucius Tarquinius seems to have been very fascinated with. And in fact, he tried to make himself so connected to these tribes of Latins out there. He even had his daughter marry a guy who went by the name of Octavius Mamilius, who was a chief basically of a town called Tusculum. This guy was reported to have been the descendant of Ulysses and the goddess Circe. So he just wanted to attach himself to this tribe of the Latins. Livy doesn't really explain why this guy was so fascinated with this tribe, but he does describe how he played a cruel trick on them and made them part of Romans. I welcome you to my YouTube channel where I explore ancient texts and try to find interesting stories in them. At the moment, I'm going through the book from the founding of the city by Titus Livy or Livy. These books are often referred to as the history of Rome. It's a collection of books that were written about 2,000 years ago, and they cover the history of Rome in about a period of about 700 to 800 years, starting from the founding of the city, of course, as the title says, by Romulus, up until when Augustus was the king. Now, if you've not subscribed, subscribe so that you don't miss any of the videos I upload from it. Will also help me reach a wider audience. Now, I need to point out that I've said this in another video, that there were these questions about whether Lucius Tarquinius Jr. was the son of Lucius Tarquinius Priscus or the grandson. And I've said that Livy tells us that his conclusion is that he was the son of Lucius Tarquinius Priscus and not the grandson. Now, Lucius Tarquinius Priscus was the seventh king of Rome. He came after Romulus, Numa, Tullus, Ancus, Tarquinius, of course his father, and Servius, his father-in-law. Now, when he came to power, he had these fascinations with the Latins, the tribe of Latins who were still out of Rome. And he wanted to be so connected to them. He even had one of his daughters marry one of the chiefs of the Latins and things like that. But deep down, he wanted to make Latins to become part of the Romans, the tribes of Latins that were still out there. And he came up with a strategy that you can call is maybe smart, but also very cruel. He looked at these tribes and he recognized that there was one of the chiefs who was very powerful, Turnus. And he knew among all the chiefs of the Latins, Turnus was the one who was likely to give him a lot of trouble. And he also knew that Turnus hated disrespect. And he was going to use that to finish him. Now, remember, he couldn't just go and finish Turnus like he would do to the Romans, because Turnus, these were our tribes that were outside there. And if he attempted to do that, the other tribesmen will fight the Romans. So he had to be very careful. Now, this is what he does. One day he sends messages to the chiefs of the Latins and tells them he wanted to meet them at the grove of Ferentina. That's what Livy tells us. Now, these chiefs come to that place early in the morning because they understanding they had that was that the king was to come very early and then they would have this conversation the king wanted. They didn't know what the king really wanted to talk about, but they were like, well, we'll come and listen. So they come very early in the morning, they sit and wait, but Lucius Tarquinius Jr. doesn't show up. And they wait and wait and wait and wait, and the day keeps going, and these chiefs become frustrated. They become frustrated and feeling disrespected. And in fact, the person who was really frustrated and feel disrespected was Turnus. Livy tells us his full name was Turnus Herdonius of Aricia. He was very angry and he started telling the other chiefs, no wonder the Romans called this guy Superbus, the arrogant one, the proud one. See what he's putting us through. He didn't really like what the king had done. Finally, in the evening, Lucius Tarquinius Jr. Comes and they ask him, why are you late? And he's like, there's this father and son who had a conflict and I had to step in and solve that problem. And everybody's like, you needed an entire day to do that, and you couldn't even postpone that so that you can meet these chiefs of the Latins you had asked to come here. So they didn't really like it, and the king asked them that they come the next day because it was late now. We could not continue with this meeting, and they leave. They go. Now, Turnus, no, not Turnus. Turnus is very angry, of course. And Turnus was one person who couldn't hide his displeasure. And he basically told the king he wasn't happy about whatever had happened. And this made Tarquinius very angry, but he was able to hide his anger from everyone. Now, when they left, Lucius Tarquinius Jr. he reaches out to some friends he had within the Latins, and he asks them to bribe one of the slaves of Turnus. And they find that slave, and Livy tells us they bribe him with gold. And what they wanted him to do is to take a stash of swords into the house where Turnus was sleeping and hide them somewhere. And this guy does that. After being given this gold, he takes these swords and he hides them somewhere in the house. Now, the very next morning, Lucius calls all the other chiefs except Turnus, earlier than the planned time of meeting, of course. So Turnus is still sleeping, thinking that the meeting will happen at some time, so he still had some moment to rest. And these chiefs come and he tells them, Lucius tells them, you know, I have something to tell you that I've learned not long ago. Turnus is planning to murder not only me, but you people, because he wants to rule over the Latins and, of course, the Romans. And I learned about this right now, and his plan was to do it yesterday, but me coming late kind of like saved all of us. And he's planning to do it today when we meet. And he tells them that's why he was so angry yesterday, because I came late. And he told them there's a way to prove that that is true. And he told them we can go right now to his house and search his house and see if he has anything, any equipment he's put in place or he's having to carry out the plans he have. And these chiefs and Lucius go to Turnus' house, and they reach there, and in fact they search the house and they find the swords. And because of that, they put him in chains and they have him thrown into, Livy tells us, the Ferentina water. They sunk him into a well, and he dies. And after he's gone now, Lucius has removed the person he knew would have been the biggest resistance to his attempts to make the Latins part of the Romans. And after that, the others, either they couldn't resist or they were persuaded that Lucius had the best interest for them. And he presented a treaty to them, and they signed, and they became part of the Roman kingdom.